Hey everyone, welcome. Good to see you again. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's great to get back on here again this week. We got some good feedback last time on the sessions we've done up until now. So here we go. We got episode 4. So we just want to take you through. We put in the post last week. We were going to talk about leadership in difficult situations. That's really the topic that we've got lined up for you this morning. So hey Neil, how you doing? Good to see you. All good?
I'm outstanding, thank you, and we finally got it right. Finally got the colours back. Well, actually, in fairness, we cheated. This week we actually decided to coordinate because and actually give us some feedback on the colours. Does purple work? But no, I'm fine actually. Thanks. I'm a little tired today actually, but I didn't sleep that well last night, but which is unusual for me. But I'm buzzing around this topic. Leadership in difficult situations is something that I get so frustrated about when I see it not being managed properly or not being dealt with properly, and you see it so often. So now I'm really looking forward to delving into this one today.
And look, it's not a single strand, right? We see this in our personal lives, we see it at work, we see it with customer situations, we see it everywhere, right? So what we're going to go through, guys, is our thinking in terms of what does this mean, what's it all about. So I guess we can go a couple of places. What do you think, Neil? Where do you want to start off with taking this for today?
Well, I guess difficult situations fall in different areas. So I'm guessing if you think about the difficult situation we all found ourselves in, and every leader found themselves in back in the UK in February, in China it was a bit earlier, the US a bit later.
Yeah.
But every leader's had to deal with a difficult situation in the environment, the health environment through this lockdown. So that's probably a good area to start. How does a leader deal with that kind of difficult situation whenever it might come up?
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I guess because it's not only the leader that's got the difficulty to deal with, because it's the person delivering the message, but also the person receiving the message has got some difficulty in there. So yeah, I think where I'd want to start off with this though is let's talk about customers. Let's talk. I mean, you and I have had some interesting deals that we've done over the time, right? And there's been some times that we've got into conversations with those customers. Did we know those conversations were going to get difficult, or did we enter a room knowing we were going to have a difficult conversation that day? Because that's another thing. Have you planned it, or have you got to react to it when it happens? Have you got anything you'd want to offer up around customer?
Well, okay, so we'll move on from the environment and we'll talk about customers.
I tell you what, let's start again because I wasn't listening to you.
You weren't. No, but that's not uncommon, right?
Something was going on in my head.
Was it? So,
what was going on in my?
I'm not going to press pause and start recording because I think it's really important that. So what I said was, listen this time, right? What I said was, leaders have all had to deal with current difficult situations recently, and because of the environment and because of what's been going on. And you're right, it's not just leaders who've had to deal with it, everyone's had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Leaders have had to kind of take a leadership position on it.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time talking to the leaders I coach over the last few months about it. And it's been very difficult. It's that kind of roller coaster ride of personal emotions, what happens to my business, etc. But I think there's a common theme comes through whenever I'm having conversations is you can only control what you can control.
Yeah.
You can't control the fact the pandemic's happened. You can't control what the government's doing.
Yeah.
You can't control what's happening in the economy. What you can control is how you react to it and what you do.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So I think that's my thought process around leadership is the leader's got to help the organisation focus on what can they control and what can they do to make a difference and how can they decide what they move forward with, rather than focusing on too big a scenario which they can't control.
So when you say leader in that context, you're talking about the leader of a business, Well, you're talking right. So
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. My thought, good point. Right? I'm thinking leader of business, not leader of a country, but
okay.
I guess, similarities there.
Yeah, no. So you're absolutely right, and your point about you can only control what you can control is absolutely right, because you can end up dwelling on things that are out of your control. You can end up having conversations that will make no difference at the end of it, and you'll just frustrate yourself and everybody else. So if you take in context where your company might sit in that, and the things that you can influence, the difficult conversations are going to be, let's take a really direct one for a leader in that difficult situation. Can I afford to keep everybody that I've got in my organization? Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to make a decision, and then there's going to have to be conversations that are going to have to come from that about whether I furlough, do I make people redundant, what do I do, right? And that's a difficult situation. And I think the other thing you've got to think about is it's not just about now. No one had a forecast, did they? This pandemic's going to last for 2.5 months, and then it's all going to be over. No one knows.
Correct.
So do you make a short-term decision? Do you make a longer-term decision? And you've got to live with that, right?
Yeah, and so that's a really interesting point, right? Because there are in any difficult situation, there's probably difficult conversations. So there's difficult decisions that need to be made.
Yeah.
And my advice on that, whenever I'm coaching anyone, is, get the facts, gather what you need to know, but focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
You can't control it. You might be able to influence it. So if it's the senior management you might be able to influence it, but you can't control it.
Yeah.
So make decisions around what you can control. And you're right. One of the things you can control is your employees, your cost base, your buildings, your assets, and your people are one of those. And I guess in any difficult situation, there's a difficult conversation to have. And how do you approach those? And, again, I see so many people doing that poorly. But what advice would you have for people on approaching difficult conversations with people?
I think one of the look, these things are always going to involve emotion, right? So you've got to think about how you're going to control that emotion. But I think you've got to stand back. First thing I'd say is stay calm. Because as soon as you start panicking, or as soon as you start behaving erratically, that makes people nervous around you, and it makes you behave strangely. Mm-hmm. But like you and I focus on a lot of the time is, what is the outcome you're looking for? When you go into those situations, you need to be clear on what outcome you're trying to achieve when you come out of it, because that will guide where you need to go, right? So let me take, I'm in a company, I'm in a difficult situation, I've had to furlough people. Now I need to decide, where do I want to go as my outcome? Do I want to just keep my business stable? Do I want to decide that I'm going to have to delve into some of my war chest to keep my business running? Or do I want to say, no, I'm going to be very direct about it and very aggressive about it, and say, I'm going to take the actions I need to take to make sure that my balance sheet can survive. So you need to decide what your outcome is.
Yeah, so you're right. So and then you've got to try and guess what's going to happen to the business, or you've got to try and plan for what you know and hope for, but also plan for the worst. And I guess what I've learned personally from my own situation and also working with other people is, where there's a difficult decision to be made, my first advice I'd give is about what's in your control. The second thing is, don't put off making the decision. Mm-hmm. You're never going to have all the facts. You're never going to have everything you need to know. So long as you've got enough to make a balanced decision, a reasonable decision, then don't put it off. Because the worst thing, this will come up time and time again as we talk through this difficult situations topic, is poor leaders put off difficult decisions and don't manage difficult situations because they hope they'll go away, or they aren't strong enough to make a decision to do something about it. Yeah. Or they're afraid of the message they're going to be delivering. So that putting it off is one of the worst things you can do. So once you've got what's in your control, then make a decision, then implement it.
Yeah. I mean, the chance of it getting better if you put it off is pretty slim, right? So it could do, but it's highly unlikely, because if it was likely it was going to get better, then it wouldn't be a difficult situation, right? It'd be a short-term hiccup.
Yeah. And if you do think it's going to get better, that's part of your decision-making process. You've got to balance out where you think it's going to go. So that then leads on to, so having those, you know, you've got a difficult situation, you then need to have a difficult conversation. So let's say you've got to furlough someone, or you've got to make someone redundant, which is real at the moment for leaders. You know, so that's a difficult situation to be in. So how do you make that least painful, or how do you make that, because it's always going to be painful, but how do you make it the most positive experience, or how can you manage that in the best way for everybody concerned?
Yeah, I mean, we're also assuming that in that difficult situation, everything's negative, right? I think you've also got to find, are there any positives in here?
Right.
Because if you're going to deliver a difficult message, look for, there might be a positive that you have to, I'm not saying about spin doctoring it, I'm saying make sure you put all the facts forward and on the table so people can see the whole picture overall. And I think that's got to be done before you just go launching out with maybe what you think is a bad message and you haven't thought about the overall picture. So look at the whole context, think about what that is. Then I think it's about sharing and being open, right? You know, I think last week we talked about communication.
Fairness.
Was it week before? Week before we talked about communication, right? And we said, do you always share everything with all your employees? Well, in difficult times, I think you need to share, why am I making these decisions? You can't just make the decision and move on and no one knows why.
Yeah.
They might not like it, but they'll understand it. And I think that's a really important point. Don't expect people are always going to like everything you have to say, but you have to be fair. They're not stupid. People understand if you share.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you, in that difficult situation, where the more information you can give people so that they understand the decision-making process, they understand your thought process, they understand the same as you do, it makes that conversation easier.
Yeah.
And but one of, you know, one of the key bits of advice, again, I always give people when they're having to have that difficult conversation is don't sugarcoat it. Don't make it all soft and fluffy and, you know, you're a fabulous person. You've done lots of great stuff for the business, all the stuff, because they know what's coming.
Yeah.
So why not just sit and say, look, the current situation is this, we've got to let some people go, or whatever it is, you know, we've got to make some changes. This is how it affects you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you know, there was a film that Brad Pitt made probably 5 or 6 years ago called Moneyball. And it was about it's a true story about a baseball team in Oakland, California. And in that film, he had a statistician that looked at statistics to hire people and fire people. And they were getting rid of one of their key players. And the statistician said, you know, well, I'll give the message this time. How should I do it? And Brad Pitt said in his spiel, he said, look, let me ask you a question. Would you prefer a bullet to the stomach or a bullet to the head? And he said, what do you mean? Well, he said, a bullet to the stomach, you're going to die slowly. A bullet to the head, you'll die instantly. So when you're delivering a message, which would you prefer? He said, well, I prefer a bullet to the head. He said, so don't sugarcoat the message. Get him in here. Tell him he's leaving. He's been let go. Here's the number of an agent. Good luck.
Yeah.
And whilst that's probably a little harsh if you've got him in there a long time, the point is still good, is don't make someone suffer over a long period of time before you deliver the message you're going to deliver anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the only other conversation in that kind of scenario is, what can I do to help deal with what you are in now? So I'm not going to dress up what I've just told you. You are where you are. Yeah. You are leaving the business in 4 weeks' time. Now, what can I do to help you with that?
Yeah.
And you know, they might not be totally receptive to a conversation right now, but I think that's important, because I think the empathy has to be both ways as well. We've got to have empathy when you're delivering a difficult message or when you're just in a difficult situation. But I'd also expect the recipients to have some empathy back the other way. Mm. So here we are in this pandemic situation. And I was on a family Zoom the other day, and we were talking about the situation. And somebody commented about how rubbish the government have been handling this. And they were attack. And I can't help but lost it at the time and said, stop, really? Really? Do we really think they've done a terrible job? Or do you think they've done a bad job of the thing that you're talking about now? Because let me put it another way. Have you ever been a leader? And have you ever been in a situation where you've had to deal with a difficult situation? Because if you haven't, I don't know you've got the ability to comment about how badly other people are handling it, because you've never been there, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a victim of what you just commented, so if I was a school teacher and it's affecting schools, I get that. But I think there's got to be empathy both ways to say, if I was sitting in that chair, how would I deliver that difficult message? How would I handle that difficult situation?
And that's an interesting point, right? If the person wants to invest the time to understand. And I think you make a really good point, is how much it's easy to criticize without information.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at a decision and go, that's wrong, without investing the time to read or learn or listen to the information.
Yeah.
Now, I remember setting up leadership calls years ago to speak to people about stuff, to share, and people don't turn up, and then they go, well, why are we making these decisions? Well, if you turned up and listened to the situation, the facts, whatever, you'd understand. So you're right, there is a bit of a two-way street, but it's interesting how communication keeps coming back. Leadership and communication.
Yeah.
Whether it's one-to-one, whether it's group, but it's that making sure people are informed, making sure people understand. And this is just one of those kind of difficult situations. But one of the things I've learned, I remember having to deliver a really difficult message to a sales organization that had overachieved, and we had to say, we can't afford to pay you everything.
You've done too well. You've done too well.
Yeah, so there's a percentage of, we're going to have to take a hit on a percentage of our commission. But, getting everyone on the phone, sharing it with everyone, sharing the situation, we're all in this together, it's affecting everyone in the same way. Actually, the feedback from that was really positive. And, it's a while ago that happened, but I learned from that, and I've learned from other situations that if you treat people like adults, you involve them in the conversation, you don't sugarcoat stuff. You give people facts. Don't give them waffle and stroke their ego. Just give them facts. Then dealing with a difficult situation is a lot easier.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. And so I think we've spent a bit of time here around communication, right? You're absolutely right. It is a key topic, absolutely linked into this. Let's just think about something slightly different then, right? I think we have touched on it, which is actually about decision making. Right, because it's not just about the communications, decision making.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about decision making when you're in a difficult situation? Do you think what do you think are the key attributes to think about in making those decisions when you're in a difficult situation?
So, I think
and is it different from any other time, by
the way? It's probably different because the emotions are different. It could be different because timescales might be different. So the difficult situation might be something that's urgent. But it's a bit like I said early on in this conversation. Understand what's in your control. So what decisions can you control? Understand the facts. What facts can you get from the, what do you need to know, and what advice can you get? But don't wait to get all the facts before you make a decision. To get input, but then just make a decision. Just get on with it and take it. It doesn't mean you've got to be dogmatic about going down that route. If you get some more information, you have to change a little bit. In politics, they call it a U-turn. I just call it getting more information and adjusting slightly. So from that point of view, so that would be my thoughts on decision making. I don't know what your thoughts would be.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd bring in there, Neil, is about getting advice and working with people around you, right? Because you may not have everything in your head. You may have missed something in your thinking. You may have not got a key piece of data that somebody else has got that could change what you were thinking, planning, and the decision you might have made. So involving other people in that, I think, is really useful. It's not a sign of weakness. Getting other people's opinion is not a sign of weakness. Right? Some people might think, well, you're the boss, you should know. Well, no, why should I know everything? And each group of people have their own specialist area. So I might make a decision about the business, but not consider a sales angle. or not consider a delivery angle, or not consider a commercial angle. So you get all those points of view, and I think you make better decisions.
Yeah.
As you say, do it quickly. Right?
Yeah.
Do it quickly. Get people in a room. We have to move. We have to think quickly, but we need to act fast as well. Because if there's
just do it. Make a decision.
Yeah. Look, if there's a difficult situation going on, there's every chance people outside that room know it's a difficult situation. Yeah. There's anxiety going on already, right? So you need to move.
Yeah. And I think, so one of the things you asked early on was about difficult customer situations.
Yeah.
And everything we've said so far applies to that. And you see companies getting that wrong so often. Companies will have a situation where a product has got a problem with it and they try and hide it.
Yeah.
Instead of communicating with the customers as soon as they know there's a problem, what they're doing about it, how they're going to deal with it. It's very similar to everything we just talked about.
Yeah.
Don't hide it. Tell people they're adults, customers are adults. Tell them what the situation is. Make sure you've got all the facts. What are you doing about it? And then they can make their own decisions as well.
Yeah, agree. I mean, look, what's the most emotional topic between customer and vendor? It's money, right? And how many times have you and I hit on situations where this is going to affect the price to the customer, right? And then we've tried to find a way around it because you don't want to go deliver that message.
Yeah.
Go deliver that message. Go deliver that message. Based on what we now know that we didn't know before, this is what your contract price could look like. Once you've shared that, once you're open with it, deliver the difficult message. I mean, it's painful going into that meeting knowing that it might not be received well, but otherwise, what are you going to do? So it comes back to what you said earlier. Don't hang on to it. By all means, examine, can you find a different way around this before you deliver that message? Because it is going to cause potentially some relationship upset, but not if you do it well and there's respect on both sides.
No, and any difficult situation with a customer can turn into an opportunity if it's handled properly.
Yeah.
If you deal with it in a really good way, they see you've got a problem, they see you're dealing with it, they then have more respect for you as a supplier or as a manufacturer or vendor, whatever, because you're dealing with it in a professional way. That then can strengthen the relationship, because everyone has problems at some point.
Yeah.
If you hide away from them, it's like if you avoid the difficult conversations or the difficult decisions. Yeah. Don't skirt around them. Weak leaders, poor leaders, skirt around those conversations and they avoid them, or they put them off, or they'll play with their email, or they'll do their WhatsApp instead of getting on the phone, phoning a customer and go, this is the current situation. This is the issues we're having. This is what we're doing about it. I'm very sorry. Obviously, I'm sorry. Yeah. But I think you just got to do that. I don't know, I'm ranting a bit there.
No, it's interesting what you just said there, because look, you and I study behaviour and we understand some of this, right? But there's an important behaviour here that people need to realise, in case you don't know this, guys, right? When you've got a difficult situation you need to manage, you will prioritise other things ahead of it and convince yourself they're more important to deal with, because you don't want to deal with what you need to deal with. And we've probably all done it, right? There's the difficult thing you don't want to get to, so there's other things that will keep you busy, and that's why you didn't get to it. Now, the reason you didn't get to it is because you avoided it.
And my experience of this personally, from not doing it right and from being on the receiving end of it, is a decision put off or a difficult situation not dealt with starts like this big, and it then gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more time is, because people aren't stupid, or situations aren't, they grow because the blanks get filled in, or the vacuum gets filled in with rumors or suggestions. So you've got to just don't be a weak manager and avoid the difficult situations. Get on and deal with them would be, I think that's a lot of the stuff that's coming out of this conversation.
Well, it probably comes on to the typical matrix of urgent, important. Right. This is important, right, to start with, and as long as you're putting it off, it's starting to move up the urgent scale as well.
Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Now, when you come to fall off the urgent scale, now you're in a terrible place, because you have to do it tomorrow, when you could have taken time, planned it, and gone and done it more effectively. So think about that as well, guys.
And actually, you make a really, really good point there, right? Because difficult situations don't necessarily need to happen.
No.
And again, poor leaders have more crisis to deal with because they don't manage them upstream.
Absolutely.
They don't take the not urgent but important actions, like making sure you're clear with your employees about what their jobs are, like making sure your customers understand what you're delivering as a service, like making sure your balance sheet is strong enough to deal with ups and downs in demand. So you deal with things when they're not urgent and important. It's funny how great leaders have fewer crises.
Yeah, it's coincidence, isn't it? Funny that. Funny
Yeah.
that.
Actually, we probably should have put that at the beginning of this, that said we're talking about dealing with difficult situations, but you shouldn't have any if you're a great leader.
Yeah. But look, things hit you, right? No one plans a pandemic, right? So things hit you from nowhere, and you have to work within that. So actually, I think one of the key lessons here is think and plan ahead. How would you handle difficult situations when they're going to happen? Because they are going to happen. You just don't know when. You don't know how frequently. I think the frequency of them says how good a leader you are, because you shouldn't be having too many of these.
No,
if you've got a problem, right?
So I think what we're saying is, so it kind of what we've said over the term is deal with stuff early so it doesn't become a difficult situation.
Yeah.
If you do end up in a difficult situation, focus on what you can do, focus on what's in your control, gather as much input from as many people as you can to make sure you've got all the information you need to make a decision.
Yeah.
Make a decision, don't avoid a decision.
Yeah.
And then make sure you're having conversations with everyone so everyone's informed about what's going on and why it's happening, whether that's customers, employees, even investors, so they know why you're making decisions in the way you're making them. So I think that's kind of the structure we flowed through.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in that?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And there's a couple of things that we've hit on whilst we've been here. One of them has been about difficult conversations, and maybe that's a separate topic, right? Maybe there's a separate topic here about how you have a difficult conversation with someone, whether it's a customer or whether it's an employee or an employer or a partner or whatever, right? So I think that's something we can come and look at later on. I think it's worth us thinking about that. So I think from what we talked of today, I think we've covered a bit of ground. I hope it's been useful. I don't know if there's any more we'd probably want to go into now. I think we've probably given it a good...
well, hopefully there's some interesting thoughts in there that will help people. I think you're right. I think difficult conversations links in with some of the stuff around good practice around managing employees as well. So I think there's a lot that we could cover. Be really interested in everyone's feedback on this and your thoughts. Please subscribe so that you get to hear about when these videos get put up on YouTube, or you can do the same in the podcast in Spreaker. So yeah, but please leave us. We're getting good feedback, we're getting more views, and we're getting some feedback, so it's obviously helping, which is really pleasing for us, because we just want to help a little bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's been useful today. Do you want to just wrap up?
Well, the other thing is people have also been sharing some examples, right? As they're coming back with the feedback, they're talking about, well, I was in this situation, or here's my opinion of what this actually means. Please keep giving us that, guys, because Neil and I haven't got all the answers here, right? What we're providing is some level of catalyst for a conversation. So by all means, share with us stories you've got, good, bad, could be better, whatever, that we could use as part of the conversation. But other than that, look, thank you for your time, guys. Thanks for joining us here. Episode 4. Neil and I are going to keep going. Give us suggestions of anything new you want. Neil, have we thought what we want to do next week? I don't think we've really decided.
So I'd love to get a guest on next week. We just need to think about that, because I'll call it a surprise guest, because it's going to be a surprise to you and me. But then I'll put something in the comments at the bottom of the video about what we decide for next week.
Okay, fantastic.
Great to see everyone.
Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for your time. Enjoy. Speak to you again soon. Cheers, bye.